All right, we're going to break down one of the toughest, most deep-rooted issues in the Philippines, corruption. And this is a topic that's way bigger than just the latest headline or scandal. It actually goes right to the core of how the country is run. To really get a sense of the scale here, let's just start with one number: 1.6 trillion pesos. That's the estimated amount of money lost to corruption every single year. To put that in perspective, that's about 20% of the entire national budget. That's money that should be going to hospitals, schools, roads, just vanishing into the system. And this quote from journalist Randy David really gets to the heart of it. The idea that corruption in the Philippines isn't just about a few bad apples. The key word here is systemic. It's woven into the very fabric of how things work. So to really understand the problem, you have to understand the system itself. So in this first part, we're going to look past that staggering trillion peso number and try to get our heads around the true scope and impact of this whole issue. You have to understand, this is not a new problem. Not at all. Its roots go way, way back, all the way to the Spanish colonial era. And today, you can feel the effects pretty much everywhere, from dealing with the police, to the courts, to how public money is spent. It's a challenge that really touches almost every part of life. So how does a system like this actually operate? Well, let's look at the official rules, the laws that are supposed to fight corruption, and then compare them to what actually happens on the ground. Because what's wild is that on paper, the laws are surprisingly tough. Let's take the crime of plunder. This is a big one. It specifically targets high-level officials who manage to pocket at least 50 million pesos. That's around $1 million in dirty money through criminal schemes. Then you've got direct bribery. This is the classic quid pro quo. An official takes a gift in exchange for doing something illegal, or maybe just looking the other way and not doing their job. It's a very clear-cut, transactional kind of crime. And then there's its more subtle cousin, indirect bribery. Here, there's no specific favor promised. An official just accepts a gift simply because of the power they hold in their position. And the law is smart enough to recognize that this kind of influence is just as corrosive. And the penalties for these crimes, they're severe. I mean, the law does not mess around. We're talking more than a decade in prison, plus some major fines. So this brings up a massive question. If the laws are this strict, why on earth is corruption still thriving? And that leads us perfectly into our next section. We're going to dig into the why. We'll explore the history and the structures that help explain why a system with such deep roots is so incredibly difficult to change. You can literally trace the creation of this system through history. First, the Spanish came in and empowered local elites. Then, the Americans took over and basically kept that same power structure because it was convenient for them. And then, and this is a huge turning point, after World War II, amnesty was granted to elites who had collaborated with the occupiers. This allowed them to hold on to their political power, which really paved the way for the political dynasties we still see today. So, with all that history, it leads a lot of people to ask this really provocative question. Is corruption just part of the culture? It's an argument you hear all the time. But the answer is, well, it's a lot more complicated than a simple yes or no. So there are really two big arguments here. On one side, you have the cultural argument. It points to things like the padrino system, where favors and jobs are based on who you know, not what you know. But on the other side, you have analysts who say, hold on, it's not about culture, it's about weak institutions. They argue that the whole system was inherited from a colonial past, and it was essentially designed to extract wealth, not to serve the public. In that system, getting into public office became the best way to make a fortune. So what is the actual cost of having a system so deeply entrenched like this? In this section, let's really calculate the price, both the tangible and the intangible, that the nation pays. If you look at the 2024 Corruption Perceptions Index from Transparency International, the Philippines gets a score of 33. Now, the scale goes up to 100, where 100 is very clean. So as you can see, a score of 33 is well below both the global average and the average for the Asia-Pacific region. It's a pretty stark visual of just how widespread the perception of corruption is. And that perception has a massive economic toll. It's not just about the government losing funds and going deeper into debt. It's about the roads and bridges that are built poorly because of inflated contracts. It's about the public services that just aren't there when people need them. And maybe the biggest thing of all is the lost opportunity, the chance to fund real development that could lift millions of people out of poverty. But the cost isn't just measured in pesos. There is a profound human cost. Reports show that the Philippines is one of the most dangerous countries in the entire region for journalists and activists, for anyone who dares to expose corruption. This erosion of democratic freedom, that might just be the most severe consequence of all. Now, it is really easy to feel pessimistic after hearing all of that, but that is not the whole story. So let's shift our focus now to the people and the organizations who are actively fighting back and trying to reform the system. All across the country, you have these incredible citizen-led groups stepping up. You've got GWatch, which literally monitors the purchase and delivery of school textbooks. There's an AMFREL, tracking medicine deliveries to make sure they get to the right places. You even have EcoLink, observing how government vehicles are used. These are real, on-the-ground efforts to build transparency and hold officials accountable, one small project at a time. So what does the path forward actually look like? Well, experts point to a three-part approach. First, you need institutional reform. That means strengthening the laws, the justice system, and building a real wall between politics and business. Second, you need administrative reform, hiring civil servants based on merit, not on political connections. And third, and this is a big one, you need a cultural change. It's all about fostering civic engagement, educating voters, and creating a society where corruption is just not tolerated, period. Which leaves us with this one final thought. A system, no matter how entrenched it seems, is ultimately built by people. It's maintained by people. So the crucial question, at the end of the day, isn't whether the system can be changed. It's what will it take for people, both inside and outside of it, to be the ones who finally change it.